I'd never seen anything like that before. And I haven't seen anything like it since. It like took me back. It didn't affect my breathing or my heart rate or anything like that. It just stopped me.
Welcome to Hey That's Weird. It's episode 21, it's mid-April, and the sun is finally back here on the west coast of Canada. A big shout out to everyone who has interacted with the show on socials, including, but not limited to, Winston, Michaela, Martha, Catherine, Laura, Kristen, Ash, Hannah, and Kiet. You're all so nice, I have the best listeners, and I love chatting with you all. On that note, at the ripe age of 39 years old, I've set up a Discord for the show. I'm honestly not sure if it'll catch on or how to even use it properly. But if you're interested in joining a little Discord community, then look for the link in the Instagram bio. Today's guest is my new pal Sean from the UK. Sean is an incredibly talented tattoo artist from Brighton, and he reached out a while ago via Instagram to tell me he had a couple of stories to share. As you'll hear, his experiences had a lasting impact on him, and probably changed his perception of life in general. Anyway, I'll leave it to him to share. Without further ado, Sean, let's get weird.
Hi, my name's Sean. I'm a tattooist from Brighton in UK, southern UK. I grew up in Greater London, in like the suburbs, south suburbs. Pretty chill place to grow up, although I wasn't a football kind of kid, so I was kind of left to my own devices, and I was more into like art and drawing and playing around in the garden and stuff. I don't know. I wasn't religious, wasn't raised religious. My dad was a musician in his youth, so he was quite politically minded, very sort of left. And my mum was quite punk minded, so religion wasn't in our household. I mean, if anything, my dad is like an atheist, so he instilled in us that religion was like a waste of time, a bad thing even, the root of conflict and stuff like that, disagreements. So that wasn't really in my mind as a kid, but I did go to a local school that at the time we sung hymns and learnt Bible stories and stuff. I can still remember them now. Jonah and the whale and Noah in the ark and all that stuff. So it was in my mind, do good. I think those were the key lessons, do good. And we had to say the Lord's Prayer every day, which is weird. I've been a tattooist for over a decade. I do like classic style, but I do my own thing. I do like fun stuff, I would say. It all has an element of comedy to it. It's not in-your-face comedy, it's just not aggressive tattooing visually. Like quite laid-back person, so I like 60s flower power sort of stuff, hippie movement stuff. I'm really into vintage and things, so a lot of tattooing imagery is vintage, so I pick up on that as well. Anyway, the story that I'm talking about happened in a shop that I worked in Brighton. I worked in this shop for over 5 years. It was a really old building. I think it was like Victorian building. And it had a basement, which was where all the tattooing took place. To get to the basement, you had to go down the stairs that sort of went down a few steps and then turned back on itself and then went down into the basement. It's quite a cold, like dark place, as you can imagine. On the second half of the stairs, you could look back and see the floor that you just come from, and you could look into a room which was our drawing room, and you could see that from the stairs. So you could look in at people and you could do like talk and stuff. It was just open, you could see. So in the drawing room, obviously I spent a lot of time there drawing designs and making paintings and stuff. When I would sit in that room, you could see people walking upstairs, so you knew they were already there. Sometimes you would catch what I thought was someone coming upstairs, and you'd look and there's just no one there. You'd be there for a long time drawing, so it would happen a fair few times. 3-4 times an hour, I'd feel like, oh wait, there's someone there. Oh, no, there's no one there. That sort of progressed to a point where it wasn't just feeling someone watching or feeling someone there. It was, oh, I can see someone in my peripheral. I can see this person poking their head round. And then you'd look and there's just no one there. You're like, oh, what? I'm tired, or I've been staring at the sheet for too long, or whatever. It had been a tattoo shop since about 95, and when I worked there was 2019. And in one of the previous sort of ownerships of the tattoo shop, this guy had worked there, and he came back and worked for a week or so, which isn't uncommon in tattooing, to visit a different city and work in a shop that you know. And he said,
"Oh, have you seen the peeper yet? Have you seen the peeper?"
He referred to it as a peeper. And bearing in mind, at this point, I hadn't said to anyone about what I was experiencing with the feeling like someone was there, because it was just something that was happening and there was nothing to like substantiate it, so I hadn't mentioned it. And then when he said that, the owners of the shop were like, oh yeah, like one of them had seen it. You haven't seen it? Oh, that's what we call it, the peeper. And I was like, what? You're telling me you think this place is haunted? And one of them was adamant it was. They'd seen the peeper. They went on to describe what I had experienced. And then the other one was like,
Nah, you don't believe all that rubbish.
And then they were telling me stories about other people that had seen the thing peeping around corners, which is what I was experiencing. The main element of this story happens on a Saturday, which is a really busy day for tattooing. Everyone is normally working on a Saturday, so a tattoo shop's quite busy and people have days off, so they come in. Like the public has days off, so they come into the shop and stuff. So it was a busy day, and I was with a customer, and where I sat in the room, it was next to where the stairs were. So the stairs would come down, and then like my bed was alongside this wall, which you would walk alongside the other wall when you come down the stairs. And then the other side of that was another room, which used to be separated with a wall and a door, but they knocked it through, so you could see through it. So I was there, and then behind me, if I was looking into that other room, there was a whole nother big room where like 3 or 4 other people were working with a customer. So that's, say, like 6 people behind me, and then me and my customer was 8. And then in the other room, there was like 4 more people, 2 more tattooers and 2 more customers. So it was a busy room, lots going on, chatting, music playing. That's what it's like. It's an energetic environment. And I was just applying a stencil to someone's arm or leg. They were standing up. And I did it, and then I just happened to like look through their gap between their arm and their body into the other room to look at what people were doing. I saw a black, gaseous, sort of hazy shape just cross the room in between the people that were in that room. So they didn't see it, they didn't notice it, but I obviously did. I'd never seen anything like that before. I haven't seen anything like it since. It like took me back. It didn't affect my breathing or my heart rate or anything like that. It just stopped me. I was on a stool which spins in slow-mo, twisted around to speak to the people behind me, like so slowly. When I got to the point where my boss was and connected eyes with her, she just goes to me, "You just seen the ghost, haven't you? You just seen it." And she was really like certain about it, and I was like, yeah, I think so, I just seen something. She just knew that I'd seen it, and I was like, yeah, I think I'd seen something, and I told her what I'd seen. And then she went on to say, one time I was doing something similar, like sitting on a stool and doing something, and she saw feet walking up towards her and was like, who's that? Looked up and just nothing was there. She told me that instantly, as I just seen this thing, and I was in a state of shock, I suppose, what you call it. So that was another shock, and I was kind of like, what the hell? But I had a customer standing there just waiting for me to carry on with my job, and I'm sort of stunned beyond belief. The thing that I saw is really weird, because the more I remember it, I knew it was a person walking. You could see the weight transference onto a foot, that sort of movement. So if you were like intensely watching someone walk in slow-mo, you would see those sort of minor movements that let you know you're watching someone move, right? But there was no head, there were no feet, there was no arms. It was just sort of like a elliptical shape, which was black, that faded out on the edges. It was not solid. It was gas or smoke almost, but not fluid like how smoke is, how smoke moves fluid. And it faded in, took a step or two, what I deemed to be a step, and then it just faded out again in between these people. So that was weird, and it was weird to have like instant sort of confirmation and like validation of it within seconds. I must have had like a face on. I looked like I'd seen a ghost, cliche, but I mean, up to this point, I would say that I did not believe in ghosts. I would say, no, it's just people like trying to connect something for their own emotional need, or people just making stuff up. Because all the programs on TV about ghosts and ghost hunting and stuff are just rubbish. You never see anything. There's no like evidence, is there? Well, at the time I thought there was no evidence. So I just didn't believe it. I just never thought of it. Having the like peeping element, I was sort of like, yeah, maybe, but that's a stretch. So I just thought it was out of tiredness or whatever, because I was tired. I have young children, so I just put it down to that. But after seeing that shape, I had no explanation. I had no rationality for what I'd seen. I couldn't explain it to myself what it was, other than, oh, that's what people call a ghost. I went to do a guest spot myself, so I went to a different city in the UK to visit a shop that I'd long looked at and revered and thought, that's a really cool place, I really want to go there. And I asked them and they said yes, and so I was really excited and happy to be there and feeling like, good about it. Worked a full day there and everyone was lovely and it was great. And then at the end of the day, when it was all calm and we were all sort of cleaning down and stuff, the owner's partner, who also worked there, was very helpful throughout the day. It was a new place to me, so I didn't know where things were and how they work, nuanced things, and she helped me through all of that. So at the end of the day, we're just chatting, or whatever, and then she goes to me, so what's it like where you work then? Just a casual question, like, what's it like where you work? And I was like, yeah, it's all right, everyone's nice. Enjoying it, I suppose. And she went, no. What's the place like where you work? What's it like? And I was like, it's like a old building, I guess. We got an entranceway and then like a drawing room, and you go downstairs and we tattoo in the basement and stuff. And she was like, no, what's happened there? Like, what's going on there? I was like, what do you mean? And she said, well, what's happened? Have you ever seen anything and done it? And then I was like, well, actually, I've seen this, and like told her. It was almost like when you see a doctor and you say, oh, I've got a bad tummy, and they say, right, okay, what you need to do is this, and there's like a way they carry themselves. So the like conversation had changed from like light-hearted chatting to her almost like teaching me now. She was like, it's okay, things are there, but if you're scared of it, you're going to feed it, and they live off fear. You need to talk to it with respect. That's really important. Telling me all these things as if it was just matter of fact what I'd said to her. And what's got me the most was that she just kind of knew. I didn't even say it. I didn't mention it at all day. And it had been a while, so I was kind of over it. I wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't scared of it. I was more focused on like, I'm in this place. So that was really weird to me. How she, I guess, kind of knew. Yeah, so she said negativity would feed it and to be respectful. And she told me if something happens, if it's disruptive and it affects what I'm doing or the shop is doing, to speak to it in a certain way. She told me to say, I recognise you're here. and you're welcome to remain, but this is a place of work and I'm actually working right now, so I can't interact with you if that's what you want. You're welcome to stay, but you need to not be disturbing us, please. I was like, okay, if something happens, I'll do that, but I've only experienced one thing, so cool. And anyway, I went on to have like a nice time there and sort of forgot about what she said and went back to Brighton. So I'd been there been in the other city for about a week, and then went back on the Tuesday after that weekend, and I was unpacking my stuff from a suitcase because you have to take loads of equipment when you travel, and I heard a big thud in the back where we keep chemicals and stuff, which was not normal, obviously. I wasn't the only one there. There was one person upstairs who was the shop manager, so he was doing loads of admin or cleaning or something. So I was like, "You alright?" thinking he was there, and he dropped something. And there was no reply, so I went and looked what it was, and it was a 5-litre bottle of distilled water, which is quite a common thing to have in a tattoo studio because you need to fill up what's called an autoclave, like a high-pressure steam sterilising machine. But it's 5-litre bottle, so it's quite heavy, and it's quite a thing to move it. So there's no draft or anything like that, and there was no one there. It was just on the floor. But then I instantly remembered what this person had told me to do. So I picked it up, and as I was holding it, I said all the things that she told me to say. And she told me to burn some stuff and walk around the whole room and say it. I did, and didn't have anything again. That was the one. I worked there for a couple more years. The peeping thing definitely came back. So it felt like it was still there. I went back to that shop where this person told me, and I told her, and she was just like, "Yeah, thought so. Yeah, great. Yeah, you did the right thing." I found out that she considers herself in tune with these things, and it was just a natural thing that she knew, and she saw things, and she saw sparks and auras and stuff like that. She read tarot and stuff, which opened my eyes to all of these things. So I was quite intrigued. I was like, "Oh, can you do my tarot?" To which she was like, "Yeah." And later on we did it, and it was weird, but I didn't know this person. It was she knew me, and she honed in on things that were really private, things I haven't told anyone, elements of my life that I was living. Read a card, said, "Oh, this card means this, so this means that you've probably got this, and I'm sensing that you've got this going on in your life." It wasn't I sensed that someone has died, because everyone experienced death. It was a personal matter that I was experiencing at the time.
Hey, Luke here. Sorry for interrupting Sean's story, but I just wanted to give a little heads up about this next part. Sean sent me an additional voice clip after he told his story to address a major life event that he says could be relevant to the time he was experiencing strange occurrences. His recollection includes mention of domestic abuse. No details are shared, but if that's something you're sensitive to, just skip ahead a couple of minutes. Okay, back to you, Sean.
I just want to say that I probably didn't do it justice because it's quite a hard subject for me to touch on. But during that period, I was in receipt of quite a bit of abuse from my partner. She was a very sort of aggressive person. That's why I find it's quite important for me, the tarot element. And it was quite weird as well because I was living a double life where on the one hand, I was a tattooist doing fun, silly bits and making people laugh, and it was quite an energetic character, and I didn't act like I cared. I was just had this fuck it mentality, and it was all cool. But then at home, I was just treated like rubbish and was scared of my partner and was being abused, I guess. So it was kind of really weird that someone honed in on that element of my life without knowing me for any length of time. Second meeting, that kind of replicated the honing in on the fact that I'd seen something like a ghost, I guess, without me saying anything. Rather than actually seeing the ghost, it was more the fact that that person's perception of my reality was so great. They were able to know things and help me with things that I hadn't even understood myself, truly, which blew my mind, because I've lived quite a matter-of-fact, black and white existence, a science-led outlook on life. So that really opened me up to the idea that there's just other stuff going on that we're just not told about. It's just not talked about. And if you do talk about it, you're weird or crazy or daydreaming. There's a whole dismissal of people that say this kind of stuff. And I find that fascinating. Like, why is it being dismissed? Is it really truly there? Are these sort of things and these gifts that this person had, are they the basis of religion now as we know it? Once upon a time where people were just in tune with more things than we are. And now someone wrote it down and we just blindly follow. To touch back on the person that I visited who gave me tarot, another weird thing that happened was she said that she gave me this passage to say out loud to myself when I was by myself in calm or quiet time. And it was about, she said, cutting the cords of like negativity or something to what's attached to me. As I say, I'm quite open, so I tried it. And when I said the words that were in the passage, I did this deep release cry. And I was not convulsing, but when you sob and you're moving. And why that's relevant is she said sometimes when you cut the cords, you will feel it and you will move. It will almost shake you or whatever. And literally just after I'd said it, I started to sob and move. And that was weird because it was like, oh, she said that was going to happen. It all happened in the space of a few months and kind of connected to me seeing that thing. So, yeah, I guess that's just my ghost story.
I just had one additional question for Sean. Was he a believer in the paranormal to this day? Here's what he had to say.
I don't know if I'm a believer, though. I don't know. I experienced that weird thing. I don't know what I feel like moving forward from it. It kind of happened at a weird stage in my life because I was experiencing therapy and I was in the latent stages of that. And it wasn't normal kind of therapy. I used to go to this person's house and go in this free-form wooden structure in the back of their garden. And she used to burn frankincense, and it was all quite new agey and based on Eastern spiritualism and stuff. And I was being opened up to this idea of spiritualism as a way to help with my mental health, I guess. I'd experienced the loss of my mother in a few years prior to the time I'm talking about. And that's why I initially started the therapy. So I had an open mind to things, I would say. Fox Mulder says, I want to believe. I was there. If it's there, cool, show me it. But I was not believing that all this stuff's real. But now I would say, yeah, maybe. I'm quite content to say that if ghosts or spirits or whatever you want to call it does exist, then cool. You hear horror stories about hauntings happening, but there's always if they delve deep, there's always some sort of wrong that's happened, and that's why it's happening. Maybe it's the idea of energy being left over and things like that.
As usual on Hey That's Weird, I reserve a section of the show for my storyteller to share or plug something they're passionate about. Here's Sean's.
There's something I want to promote. I'm actually running a 100k ultramarathon in September, and I'm doing it for the charity Calm, which is a suicide prevention charity, and they have a phone line to help people who are in emergency states or crisis, and they do loads of other stuff to help with that situation. Obviously it's a bad thing because lots of people, especially men, are opting for that rather than seeking help. So I think it's a good thing to give charity to. It's called Calm, and if you want to sponsor me, you can find my Instagram. My name's Sean, and I tattoo in Brighton, Sean Chill, and there's a link on my Instagram for that, or on Just Giving. You can find me through there. Thanks.
That does it for this episode of Hey That's Weird. Check out the show notes for links to Sean's chosen charity and his tattoo page. And if you're anywhere near Brighton, go buck something with him. That's what I'll be doing next time I'm in the UK for sure. If you have a story and you want to make an episode with me, reach out via email at heythat'sweirdpodcast@gmail.com or on Instagram at heythat'sweirdpodcast. As usual, thank you all so much for listening, and until next time, stay weird.